Artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming industries, and platforms like Coursera, with its vast learner base of over 150 million, are seeing a significant surge in demand for AI and generative AI skills. These trends reflect a shifting labor market where upskilling in areas like AI and data science and cybersecurity have become crucial, especially in the public sector. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and joining us today to discuss how AI is revolutionizing government training and reshaping the future of public service delivery is Jeffrey Maggioncalda, Chief Executive Officer at Coursera. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Wyatt. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Coursera sits in a really unique place, as I mentioned, with more than 150 million learners on your platform. What trends are you seeing around demand for AI and generative AI skills? And what do they suggest about the labor market and how it's shifting?
It's broad, it's diverse, and it's changing pretty fast. So around the world, we see institutions, governments, businesses, universities, all trying to figure out what will be the impact of generative AI on their institution. And especially if you're an educational institution, especially like universities, what do you need to be teaching people? And, it's interesting because generative AI is kind of here. It's not only learning about how it works, but more importantly, how it's used. And there's a general expectation that almost every job role will be slightly different, some substantially different, because of generative AI. So businesses, governments, citizen workforce development programs, everyone's trying to figure out how will the world change, how will jobs change, and what new skills need to be learned. We're seeing 5 enrollments per minute in generative AI content on Coursera, and it's by far the most popular category of all content on Coursera at this point.
That's impressive. Talk to me next about how you see AI transformation impacting the need to invest in public sector workforce talent. For example, what are the biggest challenges and how can AI help actually solve them?
In many respects, it's not so different from the private sector. To the extent that there's an institution who has people who do customer support will be fundamentally changed because of generative AI. It's changing rapidly already. If you have data scientists, well, that job is changing. Computer programmers, that job is changing. Marketing, that job is changing. I mean, almost every major job will change. Any knowledge worker job will change. And so I don't think that the government sector is substantially different from private sector. And I would expect to see private sector moving faster, and to some degree it is. But I will say we're seeing in the US a number of governors who put out mandates that say that the state is going to be educating the workforce and also trying to provide educational programs for the universities, the community colleges, and even some of the workforce development programs that include generative AI. The Air Force Digital University is using basically Coursera to develop AI skills for military personnel, and the Georgia Technology Authority is using Coursera to do AI upskilling for state employees. So it's a pretty broad range, and pretty much every job will be changed because of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, just putting this into context a little, over the years, we've seen numerous digital transformation priorities and a lot of technologies kind of impacting the workforce. But this moment with AI and generative AI seem both unique and urgent. What feels different about Gen AI transformation versus, say, the cloud and our data and digital skills, taking on a different kind of importance?
I think there's a number of things that makes generative AI different from other technologies. And partly it's moving very quickly because of the other technologies that preceded it. Without the cloud, we wouldn't have generative AI. Without large data sets, we wouldn't have generative AI. Without vast compute capability from companies like NVIDIA, we wouldn't have generative AI. So it could not have existed before many of the preceding technological waves. It is moving very rapidly because of those waves in terms of development, progress in the model capability, and the sort of dispersion of this technology into the hands of hundreds of millions of people. But I'd say at a very basic level, what makes this so different is that unlike anything that we've seen before, really, it's a little bit like a calculator as a thinking tool. It's a little bit like a spreadsheet, which is like a glorified calculator. It's a little bit like Google, which is a way of storing and retrieving information. But what's different about generative AI It's a thinking tool that can help you shape your thinking. A calculator executes instructions that you already knew how to generally develop. And same thing with the spreadsheet. A word processor is a tool to put your thoughts onto a piece of paper in a digital format instead of using a typewriter on a piece of paper. But working with generative AI allows an individual, anybody, to have a thought partner to help shape, refine, challenge their thinking. So anyone who thinks, anyone who decides, anyone who communicates ideas is someone who could be using generative AI as a tool. And historically, when it comes to AI, it was really the builders of AI models, the advanced data science people who were taking the courses on AI. Now it's not only about how do you build these AI models, it's how do you use these AI tools? And the users of these tools is basically everybody. And so the breadth of impact is going to be much broader than the earlier stages of AI development.
That's a great point. Next, I'd like to ask, you were recently on stage at the AI Expo with the Defense Department's Chief Talent Management Officer, I think talking about the role of upskilling the public sector workforce to promote national competitiveness in areas such as AI and data science and cybersecurity. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're working with the DoD and trying to help prepare their teams for the future? And what advice would you share with public sector leaders who don't yet really know where to start or are still having trouble getting their team to feel the urgency about moving from AI ambition to implementation? And in the end, what does the future of education and training in the public sector really look like for them?
It's a big question. It's a big answer. Let me see if I can boil it down a little bit. So I often come back to a fundamental first principle, which is that the importance of learning is determined by the rate of change. When things are not changing very quickly, there's less of a need and urgency to learn new things. And to a large degree, we have seen an increasing rate of change as technology has evolved more quickly. And with generative AI, it's sort of a step change. I mean, things are changing very rapidly now. And so I like to say that the rate of learning must match the rate of change. In any institution, whether you're a business or whether you're a public sector official, if you are not keeping pace with the rate of change and helping people learn how to make that more of an opportunity than a threat, then it will certainly become a threat. On the one hand, leaders of institutions need to teach their people how to use this technology because there will be massive gains in productivity and quality if they do. That's just within the institution. So with the DoD, a lot of what this is about is helping people learn how to use these AI tools and also the nature of AI so they can make smarter decisions when it comes to policy making, when it comes to procurement, and when it comes to actually using these types of tools to do people's jobs. But what is, I think, really important is it's not just about, are you taking full advantage of these capabilities? And does your institution understand how to use these effectively? It's also a relative game. I think it's a matter of national security. Any country who really can train their people across every sector, public and private sector, on how to use this will gain advantages over countries who do not. Every state in the United States who has a workforce that is more capable in using generative AI will have a group of citizens who are more attractive in the labor market compared to those states who do not. So there is a bit of a competitive dynamic here as well, which is that when leaders of institutions fail to keep pace in learning with the rate of change, they will fall behind other countries that do, other institutions that do, other states that do, other job roles that do. So I think it really is a bit of a keeping up with other institutions, as well as just an opportunity to create more access to opportunities. One other thing I'll also mention, there's a lot of states and governors have been very clear about this too, who are saying, let's get rid of the paper ceiling, the college degree as a requirement to getting access to jobs. We have seen generative AI play an incredible role as a learning assistant that we built into Coursera. We call it Coach, that helps people from different backgrounds who maybe don't have equal amount of educational advantages, who maybe speak different languages, the ability for AI to give people a bit more learning support so that you can learn the skills to do a job even if you didn't get a chance to go to college could potentially create talent pipelines which are way broader and more diverse than the talent pipelines that we've seen in the past. So I think there's also a really important element of sort of equality and equal opportunity that comes along with this as well.
Well, that leads me to my last question is, what does the future of education and training in the public sector look like in an AI-enabled world?
I think there's a number of factors here that will be different. First, rate of learning has to be higher. There will be more education taken by more people on a more frequent basis simply to keep up with being able to utilize the new possibilities that are available because of this technology that is moving very quickly. So education will play a much bigger role than it has in the past to making a workforce productive, number one. Number two, the learning experience will be vastly different. It already is, actually, on Coursera. Every learner on Coursera, of the hundreds of millions of people, they have a tutor who sits there in every single class and is available to answer questions, provide support, explain concepts, explain the relevance of a topic or a skill to a certain job. So you can ask coach, hey, I'm learning about regression analysis and I do cybersecurity. Tell me, how is the thing that I'm learning right now relevant to my job or the job I want to get? So there is a much more personalized ability to get learning support because of AI, and it can be done in every language too. So AI is also creating way more access to education than existed before. But not only will the learning experience be different, the teaching experience will be radically different, and it already is on Coursera. So on Coursera today, we have more than 7,000 courses that have put together by thousands of instructors from the top universities and industry leaders in the world. They're actually using Course Builder to build custom courses specifically tailored to their audience by mixing and matching modules of courses on Coursera and then adding specific modules that are relevant to their learners and their institution. So this idea of custom course development by mixing and matching modules from the best instructors in the world and then personalizing it to your institution is something that just wasn't practical even a year or two ago. We now have hundreds of courses that have been built by our partners that are tailored to their audiences. So that's one big difference on learning experience. Another one, which we're going to be demonstrating in just next week at our global conference, is a new ability for an instructor, and this instructor could be a college professor, it could be a subject matter expert in a certain domain of government service, but an instructor can basically program coach to follow instructions and give them specific knowledge to do interactive learning in the course. So not only is coach a tutor that answers questions about the course, coach can also be a teacher where the instructor tells coach how the instructor wants the learner to experience an interactive discussion. Say it could be a role player, it could be a dialogue, it could be a hands-on learning experience, but the instructor uses generative AI as an extension of themselves so that you could have textual interactive exchanges. You could do it with audio where the learner is talking to the instructor and the instructor via AI is talking back to the learner. And I think it's not going to be too long until you could do full video where it will feel as a learner like you're having a Zoom video meeting with the instructor. Even though the instructor is not the live instructor who's there, it will be a generative AI version of that instructor using the instructions and the knowledge that the instructor gives it. So it's not just like go to the internet, it's grounded in the actual content from the instructor. So these personalized, interactive, multimodal learning experiences is going to be standard in online learning. And I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. Very dynamic, very personalized.
That sounds both very powerful and revolutionary, really, and both, I think, also exciting for the development of today's workforce, but also the people coming up along the way, and really also capturing the knowledge that exists in the public sector in many cases that often gets lost when people retire and whatnot. So it sounds like the platform really is poised to do some really tremendous ways of teaching, training, and enlightening today's workforce. So
just on that point, by the way, that is exactly right. So this new type of coach as teacher, just to give people a sense of what's now possible, this feature is live now. It's available in a few courses where coach can act as the instructor. Instructors, for instance, Vic Strecker from University of Michigan has a course on Coursera called Finding Purpose and Meaning in Your Life. And he's added into the course these live interactions that coach does with the learner. But coach is actually using instructions that Vic gave it and content that Vic gave it. The content's not even available directly to the learner. It's through coach, this intermediary. I could easily imagine a world where a cohort of public sector employees who are going to be retiring, and you don't want to lose that knowledge, and you want to actually have that knowledge be available to train the next generation of people, that knowledge actually gets incorporated in these learning items. And it's not that the individual learner in the public sector has to read all these documents. It's more of an interactive instructional experience where that younger learner feels like they're talking to the one who retired, who's helping them understand the context and apply what's the knowledge in those documents to specific use cases on site. So I do think that for knowledge transfer and for generational training to make sure that there are no major gaps, this type of generative AI capability is going to be very well suited for that.
I really appreciate your highlighting that.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff Maggioncalda, thank you so much for really taking a few minutes to kind of give us a fresh picture of how AI is changing the landscape for education and training and some of the exciting things taking place at Coursera. So thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Wyatt.